Hey, welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle something called Electronic Data Processing Auditing, or EDP auditing for short. Now, I know it sounds super technical, but stick with me, because this is basically the invisible system that lets us trust pretty much anything in our digital world. Let's dive in.
Really think about it for a second. Every single purchase you make, every piece of a company's financial data, every customer's private record, it all lives inside a computer. So how does anyone, a company, an investor, you, know for sure that all of that digital information is correct, safe, and not just, completely made up? That's the big question we're digging into.
All right, so before we can talk about the solution, we have to get real about the problem. And the problem is that our digital world, as amazing as it is just loaded with risks. Now, none of these should come as a surprise, right? We see these headlines literally every day. You've got massive cyber attacks that can shut a company down, data breaches that spill all our personal info, or even just simple system glitches that grind everything to a halt. And that's not even counting the dangers from the inside. Things like deliberate fraud or just plain old human error.
This quote right here gets to the heart of the whole paradox. We brought in computers to stop tiny human mistakes, like adding two numbers wrong. But if there's one tiny mistake in the programming code, that single error can be repeated millions of times in a second, causing a catastrophic failure. So the big takeaway is this: automation doesn't get rid of risk. It just changes what it looks like.
So, with all these new massive risks, what do? Well, that is exactly where EDP auditing comes into play. This is the answer to that huge question of trust in a digital age. Okay, to put it simply, think of an EDP auditor as a detective for a company's digital infrastructure. It's their job to go in, examine the systems, and check that the data is right, the security is strong, and that the whole thing is actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's all about making sure the information you're relying on is actually reliable. And this isn't just some vague look around. An audit has really specific goals. They're there to ensure data integrity. Is the info accurate? They verify security. Are the digital doors locked? They confirm system reliability. Is this thing going to crash? They check for compliance. Is the company following the rules and laws? And, just as important, they assess efficiency. Are they doing all this without wasting a ton of money and resources?
So, how does this process actually play out in the real world? Well, it's not random. It's a highly structured 5-phase process that every auditor follows to get from start to finish.
It always kicks off with planning. You figure out what you're looking at and what the biggest risks are. Then comes the field work. This is the actual hands-on investigation, gathering the evidence and testing everything. After that, they move into the evaluation stage, where they make sense of it all. This leads to the reporting, where they write up what they found and what needs to change. But, and this is key, it doesn't stop there. The last and maybe most important step is the follow-up, making sure the problems they found actually get fixed.
Now, during that fieldwork phase, the real detective work, auditors aren't just winging it. They use very specific techniques to get the evidence they need. And two of the biggest ones are called compliance testing and substantive testing. So what's the difference between the two? Well, think of it this way. Compliance testing is about the process. The company has a rule that passwords must be complex. Are people actually following that rule? Substantive testing is about the results. The financial report says the company made $10 million. Does the bank account actually have $10 million in it? See? You absolutely need both to get the full story.
Okay, so we know what they're testing for, but what are the auditors actually testing? They're looking at things called controls, which are basically the fundamental building blocks of all IT security.
Here's an easy way to think about it. If you want to secure a giant office building, you need two things. You need a solid foundation for the whole building, and you need good locks on every single office door. IT security works pretty much the same way, and it's built on these two types of controls. The big difference here is just scope. General controls are the foundation. They apply to the entire IT environment. We're talking about the company's main security policies or its plan for what to do in a disaster. Application controls, on the other hand, are those individual door locks. They're specific to one program, like making sure only a manager can approve a paycheck in the payroll software. And here's the thing, you can have the best door locks in the world, but if the building's foundation is crumbling, you're not safe.
All right,
We've covered a ton of the what and how, but let's zoom out for a minute and get back to the most important question of all. Why does any of this actually matter? It really all boils down to confidence, assurance. A good EDP audit gives the company's management peace of mind that their own systems work. It gives regulators the proof they need that the company is playing by the rules. And most importantly, it gives all the stakeholders, that's everyone, from employees to customers to investors, the confidence they need to trust that company with their money and their data. So ultimately, that's the real point. This isn't just about finding mistakes, it's about making the entire organization stronger. It's about reinforcing that digital backbone to make sure it's not just working, but that it's truly secure and reliable against all the craziness of the modern world.
Which kind of leaves us with one final big question to think about. As our technology gets exponentially more complex with things like AI and big data, does the human role of the auditor, the person who has to ask the hard questions and double-check the answers, become not less important, but maybe more critical than it has ever been? Something to chew on. Thanks for joining The Explainer.